Welcome to the Pause Awards show, where we invite past winners and future judges to talk about their journeys, inspirations, and lessons learned in their professional careers and beyond. My name is George Hedden, and I'm a founder of PauseFest and Pause Awards. Pause Awards are celebrating business achievements of impactful businesses that ultimately go to build better ecosystems. And today, I'm speaking with our awards judge. How are you today?
I'm good. Hi, George. Thanks for having me.
No problem. You have quite of a career, entrepreneurial career behind you. You worked and started some startups, but you also worked for companies, and I'm not sure whether that is kind of like stacked or kind of gone from company to startup and then back to company. However you've done it, you've got a quite interesting journey. And what I wanted to sort of kick off is to ask you, what did you learn from all the startups that you started and co-funded? There are a few of them, like Thumb Arcade, Self-Pubbed, Lyric Caps, and Ascendu, that I kind of try to sort of find. What is something that kind of really stuck out with you that you kind of now maybe implementing with the companies, or you potentially, if you would start another startup, you would be more aware and you'll be definitely thinking about those things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say probably the biggest overarching lesson I've learned is you get drawn in to do too many things that don't matter. And so, I would think about this business and think, well, you need a website, you need business cards, and you probably need some kind of plan, and you start going through all these things that you see other companies doing. But, we forget that they're at a different, space and time than where you are. Especially when they began, they didn't look like they do now as you're kind of looking up to them or admiring how they do their work. And so I've learned that 95% of the things you want to do just shouldn't be done yet. And so most startups really need to focus on, if you wanted to distill it down, do you have something that solves a problem? In other words, do people want a thing that you have? Can you find those people? And can you convince them to buy it even if you don't have it? Like if you're focused on those three things and nothing else, it doesn't matter whether you're not wearing a branded t-shirt, whether you don't have business cards, even if you don't have a website, there's so many free, cheap, simple tools that you can use to just learn that and begin growing that. And then the other stuff comes. So that's probably the biggest takeaway, is that so many startups get caught up in the sort of swagger of being a startup, rather than it's growing a business. And it's not a business unless you can figure out how to make money doing it.
Business cards and stickers are not a business.
Everybody wants stickers. You gotta have stickers, but that maybe only that.
Thanks. We just kind of launched into conversation. I know there's a lot that you can talk about, but I wanted to kind of rewind a little bit back, and something that I should have probably done at the start to introduce you a little bit more. And what I really love on your website, you say, "Hello, I'm Andy Rosick. I can help you find sanity while scaling your business." And I quite like that. There's a quite interesting things you've done. Again, as I mentioned before, you helping founders raise angel and VC funding, and what it takes to grow rapidly in the new markets, and you negotiated some acquisitions, and you're saying you even inspired Jack Dorsey before Square launched. There's a lot of things that you're done and doing, and a lot of this is kind of rooted in building teams, and most of your, I guess, from what I've seen, roles come in product management and innovation. And And it's great that even from, what you just said with startups, focus on your product, focus on what you're building, find that customer, make some money and then kind of do things. But what have you found, working with some big retailers like the Home Depot and Kroger? How do you shake up the retail, to deliver better outcomes? How do you innovate in those sort of industries?
Yeah, I mean, I think, back to, the beginning of what you're saying there is that I've always been drawn to kind of what makes people do what they do, sort of the sociology, the human psychology. That's why I've been in and out of gaming quite a lot, because I think gaming is about as close as you can get to putting a product in front of almost like someone's psyche, how they're going to interact with this thing. So I'm definitely a study in that, and I think it's fascinating. Think about like how people behave in an elevator, for instance, or in these different social situations, and like all that stuff to me is really, really fascinating. And so I think because of that, when you look at any business, every business is comprised of people, and so you have people working together to accomplish one thing, and the thing that you're accomplishing is to sell it to other people. And what I mean, it really all just comes back down to, can you create those connections and collaborations to get the job done, and can you also communicate that in a way that these other people go, yeah, that if there's a Venn diagram of my needs, they overlap the solution that you're offering me. Are we meeting in the middle somewhere? And if you're not, you're either taking advantage through marketing, you're forcing a sale, you have no product market fit. So these things kind of all work together, right? And so whether it's in a small startup that's trying to figure out, if kids will play a game called My Underwear, which, by the way, is never not fun to talk about, because you can say, have you played with my underwear? Have you seen my underwear? But you're talking about your game, but it always makes people smile. Whether you're making a children's game, or whether you're talking about figuring out how to sell as a massive big box retailer to new customers. Well, what does that mean when you like own the market space? What does a new customer look like, and do they even comprehend what that means, and how do you approach that? So it really comes back down to, can you figure out where those sort of overlaps exist? Because if that new customer has needs that you can meet, are you meeting enough of them to make a difference, to want them to come buy from you versus some other way? And so that's why I think it's interesting. It's been fun to do this stuff at like huge scale, like Fortune 25 level scale, where when you go to pitch ideas, if it doesn't have a billion after it in terms of the number of dollars it's going to generate per year, they won't even listen to you, because the company is so big. Anything less than that doesn't matter. And then you go to a startup plan, you're like, could I get this for $1? Is it free? Let me get the free one.
Yes.
But they're all constraints. They're just different constraints. They're, again, it's looking at, can you solve problems for people? Can you change how people behave? So that's a lot of what draws me in. It's what draws me into mentor other startup founders, to participate with other big companies. I'm on different like innovation councils here in the Pacific Northwest, because that gives me energy, right? When I'm thinking about how you can make these things work together, how people, interact, can you change behaviors, like all that stuff to me is really the fun part of it. The product is a component of that, and it's one of the tools you use, but it's not always the end all be all. It's about those human interactions.
Yeah. So pretty much what you're saying, that you need to be very, very good at listening, observing, and talking to customers to understand, what is it that they need or what they might need in the future.
And lots of data, right? And taking lots of
data.
data and distilling that down and meshing that with this anecdotal information you're getting while you're out watching them do what they do, and you're talking to them, and then you've got this data, and like where are the answers? Can you decipher the answers in the midst of all this information and find those clear, strong threads, within that?
I found a very interesting sort of quote from another Andy Ratchleff. He's the president and CEO of Wealthfront Inc. And this is half of the quote, but it kind of goes really well. When a great team meets a great market, something special happens. If you address a market that really wants your product, if the dogs are eating the dog food, then you can screw up almost everything in the company and you will still succeed. If you're really good at execution, but the dogs don't want to eat the dog food, you have no chance of winning. So there needs to be a certain, I guess, environment in which the successful kind of companies can thrive. And
this is absolutely true. I have a couple of my startups that I have launched that aren't even listed is because I shut them down as soon as I launched them. And that's another, kind of experience component that, doesn't get talked about a lot, but, it's how quickly can you, quickly adapt and move on if a door closes hard. And I remember I was literally sitting in the office of a massive investor in New York City. We were about to go on the pitch deck. He brings in a guy who's kind of his tech right arm, right? Brings him in so he can listen. And I start off a couple slides in, he goes, "This sounds just like," and he listed off 3 companies that had launched within the last 2 days. So while I was building my deck, getting ready, preparing to go in to pitch this guy, these other companies had launched and announced, and they were like literally identical. So good news, I was on the right track. I had the right idea, good concept. Bad news, I did not get on it fast enough, right? And so there's that moment. Do you just drive and plow ahead anyways, or do you just go, well, it was a great idea, let me come up with a different great idea, because this is dumb to try and be the 3rd, 4th, 5th runner up, so I've had those experiences as well, and that's that point, right? Like, if there is a market for it, that's awesome. It's just how fast can you execute it? And this concept that people hide their ideas and we're in stealth mode and all this stuff, it's like, if it's not highly patented type of technology you don't have the patent yet for, it's better just to get out there, because if you have the idea, 100 of the people have the idea at least, and probably 10 of them are trying to execute on it and make it real. So like, who's going to do it first? And I think that's much more important. And if you find that space where the dogs want to eat the dog food, you're right. I mean, you can kind of have a lot of rough edges and mess up along the way, but you've got that really strong market fit. And as long as you continue to listen, you can clean up those edges and keep driving ahead.
Yeah. Well, if the environment is right, as he says, like, you can fuck up anything and you'll still kind of be successful pretty much. But if things are not, then every single thing sort of is very important. And what you said to just before, there's a lot of ideas, yes, and you can steal ideas, but it's all in execution and how well you can execute. So this year we have introduced the Inception Award, and it's essentially just for ideas, not really fully realized startup product or anything. It's just for people to, if they have an idea and want some feedback on it, or they're thinking about starting a particular product, they can enter it for all you judges to kind of like just validate. But for everybody else that's scared to share the ideas that someone's going to steal it, well, it's very hard to make it happen. So we hope that this category will find some people that will be excited about to enter some of their thoughts.
I hope so. I hope people take that risk and do it, because at this point, you have nothing. You have an idea, right? Your idea is not worth any money. You can't sell that idea. You can't do anything, but potentially by putting it out in the world, you have a lot to gain from that. You could potentially gain maybe other co-founders who want to join you in that pursuit. You could gain advisors, you could gain insights that maybe help you refine and tweak that idea. You could find out that you're yelling at a wall and your idea is really not that great, and that's okay, right? It's not you, it's just an idea, and so you can move on from the idea. But there's all these things you find out by putting it out that you don't by holding it in. I think,
Yeah.
to me, that's the most interesting one, because I like to say to all my teams, I'm willing to publish my roadmap. I'm willing to give it to all my competitors because I will out deliver on them every day of the week. That's how I operate. And I learned that from my startup days, is that you don't sit around waiting. You don't follow other people's roadmaps. You don't follow their features. You define your vision and you go after it. And eventually they chase after you, right? But it's too late because you're still out, you're driving out ahead of them, right? So hopefully there's be a lot of folks that enter for that category, share those ideas, get them out in the world, and then see if they germinate and grow.
The more you wait, the harder it becomes, because you're just not gathering that valuable insight on what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And how to form your opinions and your behaviors. And the more you share, the more you find out, and you actually can move places. But if you don't and don't make decisions, it's stalling your progress.
Yes.
You did, however, answer that one of your favorite categories is "I Wish I've Done That" award. It's a funny name for it too. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, so it really kind of caught my fancy. I wish I'd done that, right? That kind of smack in the forehead. Man, I wish I would have had that idea and launched it. The whole reason I stay connected with startups, even when I'm not in startups, is that there's so much energy there. There's so much that rubs off on you. And I read so many newsletters and so many sites about startups, about funding. I think funding is a metric. I love newsletters that talk about ones that have just launched, self-funded, whatever, no funding. But like, I want to see kind of what people are doing, how they're pushing in, leaning in against all the odds. Because even if you're in a salary job, doing your thing, been there a long time, you can still apply some of that same that same energy and grit that startup founders are having, are using and utilizing, and apply that into what you're doing. You'll be more successful. I've found it like 100% true. Even when I've been in really big organizations, I just treat my sphere that I am part of as if it was my own company. And I make decisions and I push it on things as if they were going to benefit me as the owner of that company. And by doing that, I've found success. Most of the time. It's very rare that I encountered, pushback or walls because of that. So I wish I'd done that award, to me, is like ultimate inspiration. Not only did you have a great idea, but you launched it. So like, that's what I see
as in the marketplace.
Yeah. And I like, that's why I love these awards, because we're celebrating so many businesses that perhaps haven't had that big metric, haven't had that big dollar amount raise, or some, merger or exit, or gone public. So there'll be some of those, but it's those ones that are just getting going, or just maybe over that, like, we're probably going to survive as a business. They're like right on that, cusp of, a minute ago we thought we were dead, and now we see the future is bright. And it's like, those are those moments that should encourage us all, should get us excited. And I never feel like, oh man, it's not like I wish I'd done that like, dang it. And now I'm pissed because I didn't think of that. It's like, oh, like inspiring, like, I wish I had thought of that. I wish I had done that, which makes me want to come up with new ideas, right? It makes me want to think more creatively. So yes, I really hope we have some wonderful entrants in that space, and that we get to celebrate some awesome companies.
It's good that you understood that very correctly. The intent behind this is like, I wish I've done that, as if like I'm jealous of your success. I wish I've done that, sort of like, how dare you be so smart. It's so kind of contagious in a way. But as you were saying, like some companies, especially if you're starting the business, it's hard, it's drilling, it's grind, it is, you don't get much pat on the back. It's, and a lot of early days kind of small companies, think of success as if like the only kind of a kind of approval is if I raise seed capital or get some money or sell more products. That's kind of my reassurance that I'm doing well. But I guess these awards are very different in a sense that not many out there that I could find that really award for, those milestones and for business achievements that, you could, as you were saying before, you could kind of go like, well, I've just had a smart idea and it's working, and that should be enough for me to kind of feel good about it. And there's a award that I can potentially win. And there's a bunch of there's 22 categories, but, just kind of changing or trying to change the thinking that like the capital is the only reward that you should be aiming at. There's other in between sort of rewards that you should recognize on your journey to success, whatever that is for you personally.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's, like I said, I'm very much all about people. I'm involved with product. That's what my titles say, but it is about the people, and I feel like there's many more metrics than just the money, and it's, are you having a positive impact on the people you work with? Are you having a positive impact on the community you serve? Are you having, positive impact and change on perhaps your industry? Or, so there's all these different levels of sort of the I guess indicators, the metrics that you can use to say, am I achieving the goals that I've set out to achieve, right? Not everyone is hoping to be, the next billionaire, because I don't know that in itself is an achievement, right? It is a number marker against things you have done, but I don't know that it has the intrinsic value that we imagine it does, right? So, and again, I don't have $1 billion, so I'll just speak as someone who's assuming that it may buy a lot of things, but it doesn't always buy, the satisfaction and joy and things that you can get from some of these other indicators, right? And other metrics. So, are you doing things for the right reason? Are you impacting people? Are you, maybe you don't have that, unicorn type of company, but in essence, you are a unicorn to this maybe a local community that you serve and are making a deep positive impact. And I think of the same thing. I coach football or soccer here in the U.S. And I see these kids, throughout the years. I see them, at like middle school awards ceremonies, and there's some of the boys or girls that I've coached, and they come up to me and still call me coach. And you're seeing them through life and realizing like I had impacts on these people that I'll never get paid for. I never got paid to coach them to kick a ball, but there's this larger impact. And so that's why I put the hours in, and I love it. I love the sport, so that's also a positive benefit. So it brings me joy. I get to have an influence on their lives, but there is no money metric associated there. And so I think a lot of the awards that you have laid out here for the positive awards, speak to some of those. And there's a lot more businesses, gratefully, that are, somewhat focused on the revenue side, and that you have to be, but have these like higher or, more clear North Stars that are pointing towards, global impact and economic impact for, lesser served communities. You go down the list, there's like so many ways that a business can impact the world. And so I think those are the interesting things that we need to celebrate. We got to call attention to, and hopefully more people will go, I should go start up like that one. Maybe it's not the I should have done that award. I wish I'd done that. But it's I could do it like that. And I think that would be huge.
Yeah. It's the small things. And I did want to talk to you about your coaching career almost, because you've been doing it since 2014. It's quite some time. You obviously enjoy it. And everything that I know about you, Andy, tells me that you're very much a people person. spending a lot of time um, coaching kids. You have kids of your own, and you're also love bringing people to in a team, building teams. It's a very you're very much immersed in people and understanding and working with them, and that's a great skill to have. That is really amazing to be able to read and interact with people, and sort of, especially, it's not like a one or two, it's groups of people, a larger
Hmm.
groups of people. Now, what I wanted to sort of ask you is, coaching a football team is one thing and kind of running a business is another, but have you found any similarities between football and business? There's a bit of a strategy in
Yeah.
both that kind of connects, and how you, I mean, how you sort
Yeah.
of play out the
There
game.
are. There are definitely, yes. And I think there's some very clear parallels, I think. So, as a coach of a football team versus someone who's maybe leading a business team, some of the similarities are that, you know, you could go kick the ball for them or you could go do work for them, but they're not learning how to do it. Right. And in football, what I love about it is that it's this creative game. And some of the drills and the things you train with, for especially for kids, is you're teaching them to think about all the creative options they have, because it's not like it's a repetitive, like you come up, this is what happens, the ball comes at you this way, you're supposed to kick it there. You have infinite possibilities, and that is really hard to train, and so is it with people in the workspace. And so, how do you guide people to become their best,
Make
to
their own decisions.
function as a team, to make good decisions, to fail, celebrate that failure, and encourage them on to learn from that failure. I've kids all the time out on the pitch who, I push them, we're doing a drill. I'm like, I want to see you miss the cone. I want to see you, trip over that. I want to see, if I don't see you doing that, then you're not pushing yourself. If you get this right every time, you're not going fast enough. You're not trying hard enough. Right. And so, it's how do you set up similar scenarios in a workspace that says, I want to bring out the best in people. I want to see them hopefully get good enough to take my job. Ideally, I move up, right? But I want people to move up. And so it's taking those same approaches and the same difficulties, right? You watch them do the same mistake over and you're just like, oh, it hurts. But you can't fix that. But you can come alongside and say, hey, I saw that happen. What do you think?
Mm.
Well, I shouldn't have dribbled one more time. I should have taken the shot. Okay, interesting. What do you think you might do differently next time? And so it's like using those same skills and kind of honing those over time, because you want to jump in, just be like, no, just kick the ball, but it doesn't help them, right? They didn't learn, so the next time they've internalized it, like, here's what I need to do. And so, yeah, there's so many similarities, but the biggest thing is at work, I can't make people run laps if they're screwing off. So that's probably one of the bigger dissimilarities. But yeah, I enjoy both. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And this has been an amazing conversation with you, and I feel like I could continue this for quite some time. But to maybe round the conversation, I wanted to sort of ask you this last question about the company that you currently work with, The Fifth
Mm-hmm.
Kind. Is a workflow backbone used by world's most innovative entertainment companies and consumer brands. Do you mind sort of expanding on that, since you mentioned earlier that you working with companies like Marvel and
Yeah, absolutely. So the simple way to understand it is we basically manage all the video, image, like photograph, scripts, documents, all the content that you get to watch on TV or on the movie screens is running through our system. So who has access to it, who can edit it, who can't, who can view it, who can't, all their partners, right? So you think of like a Marvel film, there's Hallmark cards with, Thor on it, there's toys, there's food, everything has some kind of Marvel character, and we have multiple other brands, but so it's a really the kind of cool job, right? The things you might be streaming on Disney Plus right now, went through our tool. We're in a lot of those credits. But the industry really struggled, as did the events industry, and as you know, but no one filmed in 2020 because you couldn't. And we won't. The year that shall not be named. Hopefully, it'll be a distant memory soon. But we had to pivot a lot of what we did to adapt and enable our clients to continue to make money, even in an environment where they were struggling to do so, and we're cut off. And so we added a lot of remote features and remote collaboration and live streams from camera, so people didn't have to be in the same room, and all these like kind of crazy new features that I think we had sort of dreamt of as being somewhere down the road.
There was
And
no
we're
need
suddenly
for it. Yeah.
like now, we just like
Tomorrow.
scrapped our roadmap. We started building new things, and it was crazy, and it still is crazy. But we retained our customers. We actually signed new customers in 2020, which is unbelievable because they needed the kind of tools we were building to try to stay in business, to keep doing the work. And so I look at that in the same way of like, here we are enabling companies to keep employing all these people, even though many of them still had to tighten up and some had furloughs, but we were still providing tools so that most, or if not all, of their employees could keep doing work. And so that to me was a very, very high value, and I think a very rewarding thing, even though there are some late nights and long weekends and that kind of thing. But we just looked at it as like, we need to survive too, right? We got to get in here and stop thinking in the old way and just transition. So yeah, it's been an interesting year and a half here, but thankfully, as you can see, there's movies starting to show on screens again. You've got lots of new stuff to stream. Hopefully we've been a small part of that.
Fantastic. That's amazing note to end this conversation with. Congratulations on your successes with the last company, and all this sort of knowledge that you shared with us today, and hopefully will inspire some of the other entrants to kind of enter and know that some really amazing people will be reading their scripts.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me, George. I do appreciate it. I'm excited to participate with all the other great judges. I can't say enough about this. I think it's a great concept. I love celebrating people doing the good work.
Thank you so much.